not a hot market, coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? So my name is Lori Power. For those that don't know me, I am a group benefit consultant. And part of what I practice doing is being consistent. And that consistency means bringing in the professionals, the experts to talk about topics that matter. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about real estate investing. I have three amazing people coming in. I'll start with Patti first as the mortgage lawyer, good friend, long-term colleague. We got Michael Wharmby from Innovative Solutions for all of your mortgage brokering needs. And we have Monty Gannon, woohoo, from Remax, the #1 guy if you're looking to buy or sell in the Alberta real estate market. I want to start with each of you to give me a brief background of how long you've been doing this, why you do it, and what keeps you motivated every day. So let's start, Patti, we'll go with you first.
Sure. So I've been in the business for 17 years now. This summer will be my 18-year anniversary. And I've always taken my individual clients as they're real treasures for me. So I do residential real estate on a referral basis only, and I do commercial real estate for my commercial client base. What keeps me motivated is really watching people have this success. I mean, I think it's an interesting transaction where you can spend a whole pile of money and people will congratulate you. I mean, there's so few other opportunities where you spend money and someone says, congratulations, right? A new car, a new business, a new home. And so the new home is, of course, the most common one. And I love we'll probably tell you a couple stories today, but I love to find the deals where I get to pull a rabbit out of a hat, where things are going sideways and I get to work with my team to make sure that the customer is happy and has a great experience, even though the deal looks like it's wildly off the rails. So that's what keeps me going.
Excellent. You like those challenges. Monty, how long have you been doing this? What keeps you motivated?
Okay, so I've actually been a licensed realtor for 13 years now. Everybody thinks because of the gray hair, but that's what real estate does to you. No, I spent 30 years working in the school system as a teacher, principal, deputy superintendent. And I also had a home building company for about 20 years, building larger custom homes. When I retired at 50, I spent 3 years buying and selling and renovating, now called flipping. And my realtor said I should get a license, which I did. And what I have found is that it keeps me motivated because I love seeing people achieve their dreams or get out of a bad situation or just kind of build something and get what they're looking for. It's a lot like teaching that way. You're helping people become successful in most cases. And that's what keeps me going every day.
Michael, now we know you didn't want to rent, so you had no choice but to get into this market. Tell us a little bit about how you get started, when, how long, what keeps you going every day.
I've been doing this for 17 years. So yeah, Monty, you're the young guy on the crew here. It's great.
Oh, I wish.
I've been owner of Innovative Mortgage here for the last 14 and a half. So this October will be our 15th anniversary incorporation. Our #1 reason is helping families. So just like Monty was saying, helping people get into that home or the next home and setting them up for success, making sure we do the long-term planning and making sure they have the right financing for them long-term. Myself, I'm a lover of math. And I'm also one of those natural problem solvers. So I apologize to all those people who talk to me, who just want me to hear something. And I just spout out like, here's solutions to your problems. But I can't help it. And like Patti, I also, because we've been doing this as long as we have been, sometimes those a little more challenging files where you've got to move certain parts around and just make it just so to make it work and make sure that round peg can fit into the square lender hole is very satisfying, and it's that problem solving nature. But yeah, the math, problem solving, helping people, seeing people happy because they're getting into their first or their forever home is a great and rewarding experience.
I tell you, when I compare buying my home using a bank as it compared to the last time I did a home purchase using a mortgage broker, I have no idea why anybody would go to a bank for a mortgage. I really don't. And hindsight being 2020 and always worried about missing the boat, I feel like I've missed that boat. It was the Titanic and it sailed and sunk long ago. But when I think about real estate investing, there is the romantic side of me that looks at that picture on Patty's screen and I think, oh, you know what? It's going to be that wonderful place on an island I happen to own. And it's going to be all palm trees and wonderful. And then the other extreme is that I'm going to get into real estate investing and it's going to end up being a slum property that nobody wants to rent from me. And I can't even afford the upkeep. Where do you stand when you're talking to somebody who's new and is interested in that real estate investing and they have those two characteristics that are perhaps not commonplace? Maybe it's unique to me, but it could be commonplace. Let's start with you, Patti.
Well, so I think that many people end up being accidental investors, right? Like you end up with the house that you first bought and you never sold it. And so you end up being an accidental investor. I think that happens quite a bit. But for the intentional investors, I always want to find out what is their real purpose? What is their long-term plan? And what is it that is driving their need to invest? Do they want to be a slumlord? Or do they want to be a flipper? Do they want to put sweat equity into the property? Or do they want to just buy something that's maybe a good deal today and sit on it long enough that it's going to appreciate and they're going to generate some revenue? So I always try to really understand what their purpose is and what motivates them.
Michael, you've done some personas on where investors fall. Can you take me through? I think there's 4 kind of personas, are there not?
There are, I believe it's residential investor Isabel, that is looking for those like multiple properties and growing their portfolio that way. And like some people just like to invest in what they know and they bought a home so they understand it and want to expand that way. Developer Dan, so that's sort of like a little more commercial, but also that those builders like we have on the call today, that are, they want a better growth for that that piece of land, or they can they have a vision, right? And Mick, you're a great example of this, where you see the livable communities, and you can thanks, Mike. And you can sort of like see that growth in what the community is, and it's exactly like that picture behind Patti, right? I mean, like if that's what you want and you can go build it and make this, not only making a home for somebody or a business, but making the whole community, is that like next level, right? There's owner user occupier,
multi-investor Matt.
So that's multi-units. That could be residential or commercial, because you can have like the commercial different bays and sort of those, or if you're into multi-unit buildings, which is something that there we go, owner user, thank you, Candace. That multi-unit investor is a different breed as well, and there's different rules and sort of like expanding apartment buildings, those sort of things. And then the owner user is that business which is doing well and they just see more control and a better spot if they have that bay that they can work out of, grow their business, and just that extra level of not only if the rent's the same as the mortgage, can I get further benefits from owning that as well. So like we deal with a ton of different investors, and Patty's got it exactly right, of like figure out their why and then discuss with them, like you were saying, Lori, on like how much time do you have to put into this? What does that setup look like? How do we set this up for long term? And what is long term to you? Because is that 40 years, or is that like Mike from Forget Homes, where you got a business that will transition, or do you need to liquidate this at some point in time? Because that's a whole other thing to discuss, right?
Absolutely. Monty, I see you as first line, front line, and I see you either as the dream catcher or the dream, nightmare guy. And the reason I'm saying it that way is because some people have illusions of grandeur. We've talked about this in the past, where they think their home may be worth, like Melanie's, now it's worth, over $1 million, but I'm going to buy the same in the same area, but for 600,000. So that's why I'm saying you are both the dream catcher, but you're also that reality person. Can you tell me what is the most common thing that you find when somebody is thinking about getting into real estate investing?
A lot of people come into it by accident, as Patti said. But I'm finding, like last night, good friends said, you know how we usually travel like 9-10 months of the year and we do this and we do that. Well, all of a sudden we have like way too much money in our bank account. How many people have that problem? And I don't want to put it into a savings account where I'm paying to actually have my money there. So what do I do? And so we had a good discussion about getting started in investing in real estate, because they already have a big portfolio of stocks, bonds, whatever. And fear is the biggest thing. And the other one is delusion. Delusion that you can do it all yourself. Even, the biggest learning I had was that I need a whole team of people to do what I do. And every day on an internet, we get messages from the newer realtors, especially. Do you know a painter? Do you know somebody who does insulation? Do you know whatever? You need to have that team, and the core of the team usually is the realtor, but it may be their financial planner, it may be the lawyer or the mortgage broker. So I think getting people to understand that this is not as easy as HGTV makes it look. You don't renovate houses over the weekend and increase their value by 200% very often. And then I try and share some of my own experience and the things that I think that from that might help them understand what it's really all about. And also, why are you what's your long-term goal? Like, are you looking at keeping these forever and having the renter pay them off? Or do you want to make a quick buck? Right now, in terms of relative, if you're selling a single family house in the Edmonton market right now, yay, it's the first time I've ever worked in a seller's market. It's crazy. The problem is I have people not putting their house on the market because they can't find anything out there. So the one group of people that is taking advantage of it is people who are selling a single family property and looking at condos as rentals or whatever, because condos have not come up. They aren't in multiple offer situations. So we all have the bad stories about condos, but if you know what you're doing, buying townhouses, condos right now is probably relatively a big gap. So it's like moving from Vancouver Island to Edmonton, right? Same idea.
I think that you hit on a few really excellent points. And if we set our main goal of having an real estate investment panel here today, is to know that this isn't a do-it-yourself project. You don't want to buy or sell on your own. You don't want to have to negotiate all those rates and imagine that you had the best on your mortgage. And you certainly don't want to do the legal paperwork. So most importantly, you need to have that team approach. And that's what really impresses me about the way that the three of you work as a team of professionals to hand that baton to one another. Patti, take me through when that team approach, that education, that planning piece.
I'll give you an example of a case that happened very recently. It was a family of four. Three of the individuals, mom and the two adult children, were buying the family home together. They are permanent residents, not Canadian citizens, so it's their first home in Canada. And one of the children was going home to get married. And so the whole transaction needed to be signed under power of attorney. So Monty was kind enough to alert me to this the day before the individual was flying out of the country. So we were able to make sure that that paperwork was in place and that person was identified and had some general advice before they left. Then we ran into some problems with their financing. Now, here's where it was really unique. So the deal did not come through Wharmby. It's most unfortunate that it didn't, because it ended up closing late and there were some extra charges and whatnot. But we called Mike anyway and said, here's the problem, and we don't know what is possible to do with the lender to make this happen on time. What do you think the options are? So he did walk us through a couple of possibilities, which allowed us to go back to the client and say, okay, well, we can wait it out. We can change gears. What do you want to do? Without disparaging their banker who was assisting them, but we wanted to know what options were available so that we could hold this deal together and it didn't collapse. So we did end up getting it completed. It was 1 week late, which is not too bad at all. We had the mortgage instructions were received actually 3 days after the proposed closing. So good for us for all working together to hold that together. And these clients were so appreciative of, they understood the complexity. They understood that they might lose this home. And for them, I mean, they've worked really, really hard to be able to own a property in Canada. And so for them, it was just such a special thing that we could bring that together for them. And I got lots of accolades from them. So that's a great example of how we do that together.
It's really a passing of the baton. Mike, when people are starting to consider that real estate investing, Mike had put up that, then you get into that refinancing, Rebecca, because in order to even get started in real estate investing, you have to know that you're going to be able to have that money. How does that process typically work?
So that's part of the initial consult with somebody who's coming in and sort of taking a look at that long-term approach and seeing what are the different available options that they do have. So I always like to give people as many options as possible, and then we can sort of narrow it down based on their scenario or what they prefer or what there is, because it's especially with first-time investors, they don't know what they don't know. So it's going into in-depth into all of the different permutations and combinations and how it works. And we have multiple spreadsheets in the background depending on the lender and their rental offsets, because that's different with each lender, and then setting them up for success, because we have many investors that want to get to that as maximum rentals as they can. And there's certain lenders that work for the first 4, and then there's some for the sort of 5, 6, 7. There's only a very few for the last few. So we need to set it up in the right order, even just so that we can get them as efficient as possible. The one thing I did want to mention about our team is also just the education piece, because there's obviously multiple things that are changing at all times. I know Patti will be talking to us soon about the Builders Lien Act, Prompt Payment Act, I believe it's going to be calling. And I did want to let everyone know today that there is the OFSI group, which is I believe it's the Office of Federal Superintendent of Institutions. I'm not sure if that's correct or not, but there's a new sort of consultation on the qualifying rate that's coming out. They've proposed to increase it to 5.25%. And that just came out this morning. You still have to have those discussions. So it's these sort of information talks, which are very great to know what's going on in real estate, because we are one section, but all of this affects all of us. So even with a rate change that's going up, that would mean we're going to thank you, Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions. So with a rate increase, that means that things are going to get even busier for the short term, because everyone wants to beat the regulation change, and then they will slow down once it's taken effect. But that sort of level of trust and teamwork for our team is very beneficial for all of our clients as well.
I can imagine, Monty, that when, again, I say your first line, front line for somebody who wants to either buy or sell, having that team behind you must make all of the difference for those repeat customers coming in, knowing that they can trust the expertise you're bringing to the table.
It is a team, and I usually recommend, if they haven't met Mike yet, that's a good place to start. So we're not showing them stuff they can't afford, especially since it might rise in price by 50,000 tomorrow. So usually I introduce them to Mike if they already haven't met him, because a lot of people have met Mike and then come see me. And similarly with Patti, a lot of people may have a lawyer and maybe they've used a lawyer to do a will or their parents' estate or whatever, but very few lawyers focus on each deal the way Patti does. That's why we're on the same team. I call her the miracle worker sometimes because she could make Helen Keller see and hear. She really could. And so a lot of people, they don't even know what they want. So the next thing is, so they'll say, well, should I sell my house first and then wait? And when my house is sold, start looking. And I go, no, we need to do them simultaneously, especially now, because you're not going to buy a house subject to sale right now. So we need to get you out there and show you what you can buy for the kind of money you're talking. And some of them decide not to go ahead and they keep their house, but at least they know what is out there. And often what they thought they wanted isn't what they end up buying.
I think Melanie's a really good example of that. Is, you listed it, saw what's out there and decided, I think you have it a love it or renovate it kind of motif right now with the growing family.
We realize the equity we have. We could easily add that 4th bedroom in a renovation versus trying to buy our dream house in the same 4-block area. So it was a process, but now we re-love our house, so it was worth it.
So Remax Western Canada just published 2 days ago a really good paper on why people are renovating and remodeling right now. And it is not for investment value. It is totally a lifestyle decision. So finally, everybody's doing what I do instead of what I say. And that is that they're feathering their nest to make it as comfortable as they can. And if they love their neighborhood like Melanie does, then that just, makes it all the easier, I guess, to do it. And of course, as your equity is increasing, Mike will help you borrow against that to put the 4th bedroom on or whatever. So it's becoming a more and more common question than it ever has been in the 13 years I've been in real estate. Like, maybe we should just stay and renovate, and what would that do? But the fact that people aren't just looking at, if I invest 50,000 in a new kitchen, will I get it out? They're going, I love cooking. This is where my family lives. I'm spending 50,000 on my kitchen.
It's definitely a different mindset. Patti, can you take us through some of those legal changes, the positive changes that are happening?
Well, so there's actually 2 big changes in Alberta right now. One of them is at the Land Titles Act. They have actually gone ahead and modernized our system. They're through kind of step 1 of that. So it's soon going to be the case that in order to do a real estate transaction in Alberta, you will have to use a lawyer because they are instituting an electronic system that only lawyers will have access to. So that's a huge step and an advancement, and it is allowing us to work from home and be able to do all of those kind of things remotely. So that's a great asset to the system. The other thing relates to, renovations, new construction, and that's the changes to the Builders Lien Act. They're modernizing that act as well, focusing more on whose obligation is it to pay whom on what timeline. And they're looking at the entire cycle of payments through contractors and subcontractors, instead of just looking at it from an owner to a contractor basis. And that's old-fashioned simplistic view. So that's coming in July. And there's still some legislation and regulations to be written about that. So there is more coming. And, there will no doubt be some bumps along the way. But that's an exciting change. And it's been a long time since the real estate market has seen a legal change. So that will be a great one to learn and adapt to.
When it comes to investing, Mick, I'm going to throw you under the bus because as you are building, and people don't have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars to get into a real estate investment. Take us through what that might look like if they're investing with somebody like yourself.
Yeah, I try and create a project where people can buy shares. The idea is often it's a buy and sort of build and sell scenario, but I've been looking harder at build and keep. So what you end up with is a new building, so your rents are a little bit higher, your maintenance costs are quite a bit lower, and many of the investors I speak to prefer to turn them over every 5 years or so. So just when they, just before they start to show their age, hopefully they sell them, and then you've got a good record of income for the property. So it turns out to be a pretty decent return on the sale. So that's in a nutshell what I look for. And if it's a build and sell scenario, then you kind of know what similar properties in the area are selling for. So key thing is to buy the land at the right price and get it done quick before the market changes its mind about what it's supporting.
And I guess the messaging there is again to hit on people's ignorance like myself, that you don't have to be the only person who is part of putting that money out there. There are opportunities for real estate investment, regardless of the income stream that you're in and how you want to get into that market. And the point is to have that team of people who are educated, who are professionals, and they are going to help you through that messy, what could be a very messy process. But typically when you're dealing with the team, you don't even see that mess as the investor. That's all done behind the scenes.
Question for Patti about the Builders Lien Act change. Is one of the changes going to be that the money has to go from the client or the lender through a lawyer, and the lawyer has to administer the holdback and so on?
No, there isn't a requirement that it has to go through a lawyer, but it will be part of the industry development of how that looks. I do a lot of work for banks as well. And so I'm talking to them about how they're going to want to deal with their own processes internally to reflect the new legislation. So I think there'll be a little bit of growing pains in the short term with lenders and their lawyers. And then the trust conditions will start to sort of sift themselves out over, the course of a year or so, and we'll figure it out. I mean, in the economy that we're in right now, although it's bustling, there are lots of projects where builders' liens are issues. So now is a great time for them to bring in these changes and have us test it and see what works and what doesn't. So yeah, time will tell.
Last words. We'll start with you, Michael. What's the last word, that one takeaway that you want everybody to understand?
Planning is key. Long-term planning, and the like some people have mentioned, one set of financing is not the same as the other, and a lot of that is initial conversations, setting yourself up for success, and sort of thinking that long-term approach for what works best for you and where you want to be. We talk with a lot of people that don't have answers to our questions, which is fine, but it at least starts them thinking about this. And one of the benefits of having Patti and Monty is that discussion of even like, what does the exit look like? Because if you go into something with no exit, you're sort of fooling yourself, right? So it's that long-term approach, and think about your why and why you're doing what you're doing and what you hope to achieve.
How about you, Monty?
Yeah, I think first of all, don't be afraid to ask questions because they cost nothing to ask. Most people are so fearful of giving you a call, they think you're too busy or whatever. And the other thing is, you know what? The difference between people who are successful and not is they take action. They don't just sit around waiting for the environment of the economy or the interest rate or whatever. They get in there, and if it means jumping in the deep water, we can help them with that. But those are the people who in the long term are successful, and the ones who ponder and wait and procrastinate, I've never seen one of them make a ton of money on real estate.
Good advice, Monty. Excellent. And over to you, Patti.
Well, one of the things that I have identified, that whenever you work in a group or you're part of a group, there are really only three things that you can give and receive to that group. And that is opportunities, resources, and support. And so I see that we share opportunities, resources, and support among our real estate group. And I think that is just such a valuable element of what we all have to offer. And I'm so appreciative. So I'd like to say thank you to Mike and Monty for all that you do for myself and our clients. Thank you.
Well, that brings us to time, and I really, really appreciate everybody coming in. Everybody who knows me knows this is my favorite time of the week. I love meeting new people. So if you're interested in coming back, I'd love to see you there. If you know somebody who could really use a bit of a gab time, maybe you let them know and they come in, the more the merrier. Thanks again for coming out.